Hello and welcome to today's video. This is a nice cozy chill one. I'm actually in my pyjamas right now, and this is also probably going to be the last video of the year. There is a small chance I will finish a reading vlog over the next 2 days as well, but the chances of that happening are quite low. I'm still going to try, I'm still going to aim, but in reality this is probably the last video of 2024. So of course, what better way to end it than a book haul. I'm going to be talking through all of the books that I've got during November and December. In the last 2 months I've purchased or obtained in some sort of way, because a lot of these were gifts, 24 books, which is a lot, and I think that's the most it's been all year. And if we break that down, in November I got 3 books and in December I got 21. And that is definitely the highest it's been all year. December's kind of been a little off the rails in terms of me sticking to my not buying too many books plan, but it's okay. It's the end of the year and it's happened, and I'm happy with all the books I've got, so you know, no stress. Very differently to most times I do these books purchase kind of videos, these big book hauls, normally a large portion of the books that I get are used books, but actually this time only one of the books I've got is used and 23 are new. And then I've read 6 of the books and have not read 18 of them. So those are our little statistic bits at the start. Oh, and I suppose I should tell you how we're going to do this video as well. I'm going to split this video up into 4 sections. First section, books I've pre-ordered. Second section, there's one book that hasn't arrived yet but I've ordered, and I've paid for it in December. The tracking says it's about to be delivered, it's just not been delivered, so I'm counting it as 2024. I've purchased it in December, it's just not arrived. Third section, books I've read, and fourth section, books I haven't read. Obviously the book that hasn't arrived yet and the books that I've pre-ordered I haven't read either, but that's just how we're doing it. Hopefully that makes sense. So let's go through the pre-ordered books first. First book I pre-ordered is Amari and the Despicable Wonders. This is the 3rd book in the Amari and the Night Brothers series. It is technically out, but I have all the books in paperback, so I pre-ordered the paperback version of it, which will come out middle of next year, so I'm very excited to get my hands on that. And that is the first book. Amari and the Night Brothers is a middle grade fantasy where we follow Amari going to what she thinks is going to be a summer school that her brother put her name forward to go to, and her brother's missing, so she's like, oh, she'll do this thing because it's something that was important to him and he's missing. And it turns out to be like a magical world and magical people and having magical powers, and it's so much more. It's so good. I absolutely loved it. I've also pre-ordered Cursebound. This is the 2nd book in the Feybound series, and I know nothing about this, even though there's hardly anything in the synopsis except for basically it's the sequel to Feybound. So yeah, I'm really excited for it. Feybound is a adult fantasy with elves and fae. Really enjoyed it. It was a really interesting world, and I cannot wait to read the 2nd book, especially as I feel like the 1st book ended on not exactly a cliffhanger, there wasn't a major thing, but it ended kind of in a way where you're not really sure where it's going to go from here. There's lots of different ways and lots of different avenues that the next book could take, and I'm really excited to see what it does. Then I also pre-ordered Funny Story. Again, this is a book that's technically out but only in hardback. I've pre-ordered the paperback version. I have recently got into romances. I'm definitely not going to be buying a romance in hardback, that's just not gonna work for me, mainly because my one romance shelf that I have for my red romance books only fits paperback, so we're not going to do anything bigger than that. But yeah, I've pre-ordered it. I've heard it's really good. I've heard it's a lot of people's favourite Emily Henry's. I'm new to romance. I've read the synopsis. I think I could enjoy it. I hope I will. Then another romance that I've actually pre-ordered is a book called Give Me Butterflies. It's one of my most anticipated releasing. It is, I believe it's classed as a STEM romance. It's 2 people who work in a museum, and it sounds really cool, really interesting. Like it's going to be just a really nice time, and I don't know, I fell in love with the cover. It's so pretty. I'm sure you can see it'll be somewhere on the screen. I also pre-ordered The Baby Dragon Cafe. This is, I'm not sure exactly what genre it is, because I think it is primarily a romance, but it's in a fantastical magical world, so maybe it's fantasy romance. I'm not really sure. It sounds really good. We have a main character who's opening a cafe where you can go and eat and also take your baby dragons with you. And we have another main character who's grumpy, and somehow they're going to come together. It sounds like it's going to be right up my alley. It sounds I'm going to have a great time. Then I also pre-ordered The Charlie Method. This is the third and I believe final book in the spin-off of the spin-off series of Elle Kennedy's hockey romance series. I can't remember what the series is called, but the series that this is in starts with the Graham effect. I enjoyed books 1 and 2. I've read all of like the Elle Kennedy hockey books that are interconnected this year and I've enjoyed them. So when I saw that one final one in that universe is coming out, I've pre-ordered it. Honestly, I don't know if I'll read any other Elle Kennedy. I think she does a lot of other books as well, but I've just really enjoyed this one series or like interconnected series, so yeah, I've pre-ordered the next one. Then I also pre-ordered Uncharmed. This is the next book by Lucy Jane Wood, whose debut book came out this year called Rewitched. It was absolutely great, really loved it, had a great time with it. It's done really well and there's a second book coming. It's going to be a witchy contemporary time, I believe, not really connected to Rewitched at all, but it's like the same kind of like, you know, set in the real world but with magic, like the same world, the same universe, whatever. And then the final pre-order is Adrift in Currents, Clean and Clear. This is the next book in the Wayward Children series. Honestly, I'm not even sure what number this is. I think it might be number 10, I think. Yeah, I think it's 10. It could be 12. It's definitely an even number because it's one that takes place in a world, not in a home. I think it's 10. But yeah, Wayward Children, it's basically book 1. We have a load of kids who over the course of their life have discovered doorways to worlds that are the perfect worlds for them, and for one reason or another they find themselves back in the real world. They don't want to be there. Half of the books are set in Eleanor West's Home for Wayward Children, which is essentially like a boarding school where they try and accept that they're back but also has a lot of hope and hopefulness to it, and I've loved absolutely every single book, so I can't wait for book 10. Okay, and then the one book that I've ordered that has not arrived yet is True Biz. This is a contemporary book. I don't know if it's just counted as contemporary or if it's counted as literary fiction. To be honest, they're not genres that I'm overly familiar with, so I'm really not sure, like, you know, how the overlap works, which one it's going to be classed as, but it's one of those. It's like, I think it's literary fiction probably, but it could just be to contemporary, and it's all about being deaf. It's set in America, so it uses ASL. I've just heard really good things about it. It's been on my radar for a long time, like in the back of my mind, like this is a book I want to prioritise and pick at some point. I haven't read much about being deaf except for a few poetry collections, but having less ability to hear and like hearing aids or implants and stuff like that is something that I am familiar with in like life, so I am really intrigued to see how this book is going to go about it, and also like intrigued to read it basically. Like, it sounds interesting, it sounds really good, and I don't really know what I'm getting myself in for because I also don't read the genre much, but I'm excited to read it. Okay, now let's do the books that I've read pile. We eventually have books to hold up. This whole time, this whole book haul, we haven't held up a book yet, but these are the books I've already read. First up, we have Lore Olympus. I got volumes 4 and 5 for Christmas and I've read these. I really like Lore Olympus. I'm never sure what book I'm up to or where I'm at because I do sometimes read the web comic rather than waiting for the books to come out, but it's a really great series. It's such nice artwork. It's a Hades and Persephone retelling and the artwork in it is just absolutely gorgeous. I've really enjoyed absolutely every collection that I've read of this, and I will continue reading it as long as it's coming out. I'm pretty sure volume 6 is out, potentially volume 7 is out. I'm definitely not that far into it. I think I've like only just got past volume 5 of the webcomic, but yeah, very excited to own these now and be able to continue reading and read them whenever I want. Then I also got and read Quicksilver. I was pleasantly surprised with this. I hadn't picked it up for ages because the hype was so big around it, but I was intrigued, and I saw a few reviews recently that made me think, let's give it a go. So I did. It also helped that I learnt that the UK editions have this cover. It's like a alternative cover, so when you buy it, it looks like this. But if you turn the dust jacket over, it's got this cover, which is the original, which, I mean, I don't mind the new cover, but I really like the original. So I figured whilst it's available, I don't know how long it's going to be available for, I would pick it up. And I ended up reading it straight away. Like, I purchased it and I started reading it that day. Really hooked me, really drew me in. I will definitely continue on with the series. I think for me it's like a 4, maybe 4.5 stars at a push, but it's definitely at least a solid 4. I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed the world. I really enjoyed the characters. Cannot complain. Then you might have seen recently I did a like Christmas reading vlog. One of the books that I read in that was The Mistletoe Motive. This was the best book of the vlog. I gave it 3.5 in the end. I did really like it. It's a short little novella by Chloe Leese. I think if it was dual point of view, I could have rated it higher, but it wasn't. It was only single point of view. But if you want a cozy Christmassy time, I do think it's a good one. It's all about working in a bookstore over Christmas, trying to save the bookstore. I liked our characters as much as I knew them. I didn't get to know them that well. Again, like, single point of view just doesn't work amazing for me when it comes to romances. But yeah, I did enjoy it. It put me in the Christmassy feels. It did what I intended it to do. Then literally, I think this might be one of my most recent purchases, is The Dixon Rule. I read this a while ago. This is the second book in the same L. Kennedy series that the Charlie Method is in, the one that I've pre-ordered, and this is book 2, which was the one that I did own. And I went into the works and it was £3.50, and I was like, yeah, let's get it. This potentially will be a series that I reread at some point. It's definitely one that I've enjoyed enough to want to own. There's so many, I think. Okay, so this is called the Campus Diaries series. It says it in the front, which is a spin-off of the Off-Campus series, which is a spin-off of the Bry-U series, the Bry-U series being the original series. But yeah, I really enjoyed this world. Like, it's good. It's easy to sink your teeth into. It's definitely got me out of some funky headspaces this year. I've enjoyed it for what it is. And then the final book that I've already read is The Ashes and the Star-Cursed King by Carissa Broadbent. I read this when it was independently published. I'd read the first 2 books in this series, and I'd picked up the first one when it came out and never picked up the second one. So I decided to pick it up because let's transition into the books I haven't read yet part of this. The third book has just come out. This is the first book of the books I haven't read yet pile. And yeah, this is The Songbird and the Heart of Stone, the third book in this Crones of Nyaxia series. But it's book 1 of the next duet, because it's a 6-book series that's coming out in 3 duets. But I'm really excited about this one. I really enjoyed the original duology. Like, I mean, not upset because it's obviously great that these are being traditionally published, but the wait for this one has been very long. I might have to read the first 2, I don't know. Maybe a synopsis online will be enough to remind me. I feel like I remember what happened in the first 2 really well, and can like remember where we are in the world, except for the fact that when I read the start of this, I have no clue who these characters are, and apparently we've already met them. So I'm thinking maybe I don't remember the side characters quite as well as I need to continue on with this series when it does change perspective with each duology. But that will be a decision I'll have to make at another point. Let's go through the rest of this pile of unread. We have The Sad Ghost Club volume 4. I didn't even know there was a volume 4 until I started making my Christmas wish list this year, and because I'd purchased the other ones previously, it came up that there was a volume 4, and I was like, what? I don't know when this came out, but it was definitely earlier in the year, but I saw nothing about it online, no promotions for it or anything like that. But I really have enjoyed this series. It's such a lovely, cozy, wholesome time, and it really makes me like feel good and feel warm and feel happy. It's very lovely. It's basically all these ghosts who have different things going on. A lot of them are anxious, some of them are depressed, some of them are lonely, and we follow them, just creating this little community of other ghosts like them. I really like this series. I am considering, I've got loads of books I'm in the middle of that I probably should finish before the end of the year, but I'm considering picking this one up at like 10 PM on New Year's Eve and like reading this as my final book to just really put me in like that lovely little zone. So we will see, but yeah, really excited for it. Oh, and the artwork inside this one is very like basic. It's grayscale, but to say there's so little and it is lines and grayscale, there's so much detail in there, and like you can really tell what's going on. It's an art style I really enjoy. Then I have Actually Your Age, Eve Brown. This is the third book in the Brown Sisters trilogy. I've read the first two earlier this year. I think I read one in like February and one in June. Really wanting to get my hands on book 3, so super happy that I've got it. And this one follows Eve Brown, who is the youngest of the sisters, I believe. And I believe that this one is like a workplace romance type thing. It's a grumpy boss and she's very like happy. I think it's like Grumpy Sunshine, and she runs him over and he breaks his arm, so she has to help out at the B&B. It sounds like fun. I've really enjoyed the first 2 books of this series. I've had such a great time with them, and like very funny time. Often the humour in books just doesn't connect with me, but so far this series it has, so I'm very excited to read this third and final one. Then I also got The Law in 60 Seconds. This is a pocket guide to know your rights. I just think this sounds like an important book. The very start of this literally says, knowing our rights means taking control of our lives. We engage with the law every day when we leave the house, and even when we don't, we're bound by rules we don't even notice until they're used against us. So this is just a little non-fiction where it takes us through lots of different laws, lots of different rights, and how to basically advocate for yourself and others if you ever need to. So I'm really excited to read this. Like I think it's, hopefully, obviously I haven't read it yet, so I don't want to be like this is exactly what you need to read, but it feels like that before going into it, so I'm hoping that it's good, and that's the case. Then I got this absolutely gorgeous book. This is by Iris Compet, and this is Fairies of the Fault Lines, and it is basically like these drawings of different types of fairies with like information about them. I don't know what to count this as. Is it fiction? Is it non-fiction? I don't know how it's presenting itself basically, but it just seems so interesting, and it's just loads of different like painted fairies. Like we start off with like the Green Man, who's like, you know, well known, and like there's just so many. It looks absolutely gorgeous. I can't wait to give this a read and see like how it's presenting itself, like how we're going about it. I'm really not sure, but I'm very excited to figure it out. I saw the artwork. I saw this on Instagram, saw the artwork and just fell in love with it, so yeah. Okay, and then our final proper non-fiction is Democracy, 11 Writers and Leaders on Democracy, What It Is and Why It Matters. This was written in early 2024, before any of the elections happened, basically about how half the world is going to take part in a national election this year, and billions will be heading to the polls. It's thrilling, unprecedented opportunity for change. Obviously the elections have now happened, but I'd still really like to read it. I only found it a couple of weeks ago in a bookshop. I'd never heard of it or seen it before, and the people that have written in this and what it's going on about just makes me excited to read, and I think it's going to be a very interesting read. I've actually put this on my January TBR, so I'm reading it right at the start of the year, and I'm so excited to. Then we've got 2 poetry collections that I'll do at the same time, because to be perfectly honest, I didn't realise that I'd got both of these from like the same poet. So I got Hold Your Own and Divisible by Itself and One, both by K. Tempest. They're a really cool poet, like spoken word poet, I think is the correct way to word it. I read Brand New Ancients by them, I think earlier this year, but it could have even been last year, and absolutely loved it. It was so good. Like I was completely immersed in it, and I've obviously been to bookshops recently and seen other collections by them in the bookshops and picked them up and not realised that I've done it twice. I think I got this one in November and this one in December, and just had completely not registered in my mind that I'd already picked this one up when I saw this one. But I'm excited because I haven't seen these previous or elsewhere in other bookshops, and I go bookshopping quite a lot, so I don't regret it. But I normally don't have like multiple poetry collections by the same poets at this, like ready to read, just because I don't read that much poetry. So yeah, I'm excited to see what these ones hold though. And then the very final book in this book haul is We Hunt the Flame by Hafsa Faisal. I really want to read this series. I think it's going to be really good. It's a young adult fantasy duology. I don't know anything about this. Like, I can show you the back of this and you can read it. That is 100% fine. You can pause and read if you want to. But I don't know anything about it the reason I picked this up is because I read A Tempest of Tea and absolutely fell in love. Really enjoyed the writing style and heard these worlds are connected. Technically where we are in A Tempest of Tea like is in the same world as where we are in this one. Like you don't need to read one before the other, they are completely separate. But when I heard that and heard so many people say, like, basically I heard a lot of people saying they liked A Tempest of Tea but they much preferred the original duology, this duology, and I'm like, well, I loved A Tempest of Tea, like am I gonna love this even more? So I picked it up. I'm very excited by it. I'll probably wait to read this one until after the second and final book in the Tempest of Tea duology comes out, just so they're completely separate in my mind, but we'll just wait and see. We'll wait and see when I read it. I'm very excited to. And those are all of the books that I've purchased at the end of 2024. If you are still here and would like to leave something in the comments, you can leave the little book stack emoji. If you did like this video, please do give it a like, subscribe down below if you want to see more content like this, and hopefully I'll see you next time. Bye!